All right, so here we are with factoring polynomials. You're going to learn the last method for factoring today. It's trinomials. It's going to be split into 2 lessons, so just kind of ease into it today. Please make sure you are, maybe jotting down notes on a piece of paper and working through some of these with me so that you understand it more. If you just watch the video, you are not going to understand how to do this, okay? You should be practicing along with me like we normally do in class, taking notes together, and then you have some practice time. So we're going to be working through some number puzzles to kind of get our mind working with the factors the way that we need to for this method, and then I'll be modeling some problems. Hopefully you'll be taking notes with that, and then I'll explain what I want you to practice. Okay, so again, we have learned some other ways of factoring. We've used greatest common factor and grouping and difference of squares, so DOS. Those methods cannot be used with this last one here that you see at the bottom there, ax squared plus bx plus c. Sometimes GCF, because of course you're always supposed to look for that first. But if GCF does not work, then you cannot use grouping on this and you cannot use DOS on this format. So these are trinomials. So 3 terms, they will always be that squared term, the one with just the single variable, and then the a, b, and c represent numbers. Okay, today the a is always going to be 1, so we won't have to worry about that, but later this week you will have a number there. Okay, and we'll have another video for that. All right, so looking at some number puzzles here, I'm going to go through 4 of them, and then there'll be 4 for you to try if you wish. But if I'm looking at the number 24 here, for example, number 1, I'm going to find the factors of 24 because I want them to multiply to 24, but then I want them to add or subtract to 14. So that's going to be like that middle term that we're trying to find for our trinomial. Okay, so 24, the factors of 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. When I think about adding or subtracting them to 14, 1 and 24 adds to 25, subtracts to 23, so that doesn't work. 2 and 12 adds to 14. When I subtract it, I get 10. 3 and 8 adds to 11, subtracts to 5. 4 and 6 adds to 10 and subtracts to 2. So there was only one set that worked out to give us our 14, and that was 2 and 12. So because I had to add them, that means they're both positive. So 2 and 12 are the 2 numbers that I want there that we would be using when we go to factor. Okay, I'm not doing the factoring part yet. When you get negatives in your numbers, it adds a little bit more of a thinking piece to it, because you have to know, like, are both of my numbers negative, or is one of them negative, is one of them positive, like what's going on with my numbers. So here I want to multiply to get negative 36, but I want to add or subtract to get negative 5. So I'm going to list the factors of 36. I'm not going to worry about the negative yet. Okay, so 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. Remember that if you don't know the factors of your numbers, you can just sit there with a calculator and take 36 divided by 1. Oh yeah, I get 36, okay? 36 divided by 2. Oh yeah, it works out. It's a whole number. It's 18. Okay, 36 divided by 3. Oh yeah, it works out to a whole number. I get 12. Okay, 36 divided by 4 works out to a whole number of 9. Okay, 36 divided by 5. Nope, don't get a whole number, so I'm not going to write it down. Okay, 36 divided by 6. Oh yes, that works out to 6. Because we got 6, it's the same number, then we know we're done. You could keep going on, but you'd end up getting back up to the 9, the 12, the 18, the 36, and so on to give you those whole numbers. Okay. So now I want to combine them to get 5. Again, not worrying about the negative right now. So 1 and 36, that's too big. 2 and 18, too big. 3 and 12, we're getting closer. If I subtract them, I get 9. Okay, 4 and 9, I subtract, I get 5. So there it is. I want 5. Okay. The thing is I know that I'm subtracting them. So that means one of them has to be negative. So I want to have a negative 5 when I add them, so that means that the 9 is the negative. So 4 plus negative 9 is negative 5, and 4 times negative 9 is the negative 36 up there. Okay, So now if I look at these next two here, on this third one, I want to multiply to give me 12. Okay, and I want to add or subtract to give me the negative 8. So I need the factors of 12 then if I'm multiplying for that. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Okay, so if I look at 1 and 12, that adds to give me 13, subtracts to give 11. Not what I want. 2 and 6 adds to give me 8. There's my 8. Okay, and let's just double check 3 and 4. Nope, when I add it, I get 7. So I know that I want 2 and 6. The question is, now I want positive 12 when I multiply and negative 8 when I add them. So if I have to add them to get 8, that means both of them have to be negative. So I want negative 2 and negative 6. And when I multiply two negatives, I get a positive. So there's why I want both of them to be a negative. Okay, moving on to the last one here that I'm going to show you then. I'm going to multiply to get negative 54 and add or subtract to get 15. So I know 1 times 54, right, is a factor. Remember, 1 times that number is always going to be a factor, okay? Divide it by 2, you get 27. Okay, divide that by 3, you get 18. If you divide it by 4, you don't get a whole number. Divide by 5, you don't get a whole number. Divide by 6, you get 9. So 6 and 9. Okay. Now I want to get 15. Okay, and here's where I'm glad this is happening because this does happen sometimes. I have 2 sets that actually can get me 15. So if you look at this, 18 minus 3 is 15. Okay, or 6 plus 9 is 15. So I do know that I need something to be negative because I have a negative 54 there. So I don't want them to be the same sign. Okay, so that means that I'm not going to use 6 and 9 because I would need positive 6 and positive 9 to give me that positive 15, but then I'm not getting negative 54 when I multiply. So I do want to use this 3 and 18 here. And remember, to get 15, I had to subtract. So there's my negative number. And I would want to subtract 3, so it's negative 3 and positive 18, okay? Now, there are 4 more here. You can either try them. The answers will come up in a little bit. You can pause the video and then find the answers if you keep the video going. Or if you want to be like, I don't really quite understand this, like how are we using this later, just go on and you'll see how we're using this thinking as we factor a trinomial. Okay, so if you want to try the 4, go ahead and pause the video now. If not, keep going. All right, so if you did try those 4, there are the combinations of numbers that you needed. Again, remember you need to multiply them to get that number and add or subtract to get that other number. That would be that middle term that we're going to be looking at, okay? So remember that a trinomial is a polynomial with 3 terms, so it's going to be in that ax squared plus bx plus c format, and it only works, this guess and check method is what we're going to call it. It only works on a trinomial, okay? Now we're not so much going to be guessing, it's kind of like determined guessing because you have a certain number that you have to guess and check with its factors, okay? So but we do want to check to see which factors actually go and make that middle term. Okay. So here are, if I would have passed out notes in class, this would have been at the top of the page. You might want to pause the video and read through it or write it down so that you have it. You can always go back through the video as many times as you need. But we are going to be splitting our trinomial into 2 sets of parentheses here. Okay, so I'll always start with that. And then again, we're going to be taking that last term, finding its factors that helps us get that middle term, okay? And again, if you are to multiply, multiply that back out, you would be getting what the problem that we're starting with, you'd be getting the answer. So we're doing the opposite of that distributive property. All right, so again, all of these are in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are a number, but for today, a is always 1, so you're not going to see a number in front of there. But I'm going to show you how to factor these 4, then there'll be some more for practice, and then you'll have a quick assignment to do for me to see where you're at, okay? All right, so on number 1 here, I do want to split it into 2 sets of parentheses, okay? I know that when I multiply this back out, again, I would get my original problem, the a squared plus 4a minus 5. So when I multiply something times something, I need to get a squared. So I know that's going to be a times a. If you remember when we did that in our multiplying unit, a times a is a squared. You're adding those exponents, okay? So I am always going to put that there at the front. Whatever variable you have, you're going to put that there, okay? Now what I want to do is I want to look at this c value, okay? So -5, that last number. I want to find the factors of that number that add or subtract to give me that middle number that's there, which for this one is 4. Okay, and this is that number puzzle work that we were working on. So the factors of 5 are only 1 and 5. Okay, well, I need to either add or subtract them to get 4, and here I need to subtract them, which means one of these numbers has to be negative. So it was going to be the -1. Okay, if it was -4 that I wanted here in the middle, then the 5 would have been negative because I needed more negatives, but now I need more positives. So these are the 2 numbers here that I'm going to write in my parentheses. So a -1 and a plus 5. Okay, so that's my final answer. So again, if I were to multiply this back out using the distributive property, I would get a squared plus 5a minus 1a minus 5. Combine the like terms in the middle, you end up with a squared plus 4a minus 5, which is the original problem that we started with. Okay, so this a minus 1 times a plus 5 is the final answer. It doesn't matter if you end up with a plus 5 times a minus 1. It's the same answer, but you do have to have that 1 with the negative and the 5 with the positive. Okay, so looking at number 2 here, I'm going to set up my parentheses. Okay, to get x squared, I know I need x times x. Okay, now I'm going to look at the factors of 42 that help me get to that 13. So 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14, 4 doesn't go in there, 5 doesn't go in there, 6 times 7. Okay? And then if I would have tried to keep going, like 7's already listed, and then 8, 9, 10, it'd work all the way back up to 14 and so on. Okay? So I need these factors. One of these sets gives me that positive 13. So 1 and 42, they don't add or subtract to give me that. 2 and 21, don't add or subtract to give me that. 3 and 14, we're getting a little bit closer here. If I add them, I get 17. If I subtract, I get 11. Okay, but that doesn't work out. So it looks like 6 and 7 are what I want. Yeah, 6 plus 7 is 13. Okay, so I had to add both of them, which means they stay positive. So plus 6 is what I'm going to write in one of them, and then the other one I'm going to write plus 7. And that is my final answer. Okay, again, you could have x plus 7 listed first times x plus 6 listed second, but it's the same thing. Okay, so again, if you did distribute that back out, you'd get x squared plus 7x plus 6x plus 42. And that 6x and 7x would go together to make that 13x. Okay, number 3 here, I'm going to set up my sets of parentheses. I need to get p squared when I multiply those first 2 terms. So p times p is going to give me p squared. Okay, now I want to look at 80, and I want the factors that give me that 18. So 1 and 80, 2 and 40, 3 and I believe it is no, 3 doesn't go in there. Okay. 4, yeah. 4 times 20, 5 times 16, 7 doesn't go in there, but then 8, of course, is 8 times 10. Okay, and then we're done with the factors. So again, I want to find which ones give us that 18. So 1 and 80, too big. 2 and 40, too big. 4 and 20, we're getting a little bit closer. When I subtract them, I get 16, but when I add them, I get 24. Okay, 16 and 5, subtract them, I get 11. Add them, I get 21. So it must be the 8 and the 10. Okay, because yeah, 8 plus 10 is 18. The problem is I notice I need a negative 18. And I have a positive 80. So 8 times 10 is 80, but that doesn't give me 8 plus 10 doesn't give me negative 18. So they must, yeah, they're both going to have to be negative then, because negative 8 times negative 10 is positive 80 still, and negative 8 plus negative 10 is negative 18. So I need to go over here and write minus 8 and minus 10. They are both negative, and that is the final answer. Okay, moving on to number 4 here. Set up my 2 sets of parentheses. Again, in the front, I'm going to need n times n to give me that n squared. And now I want to look at the factors of 14 that help me get that 5. So 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. Okay, so 1 and 14 adds to give 15, subtracts to give 13. 2 and 7, if I subtract them, I do get 5. So I have to subtract, which means one of them is negative, and I need a larger negative in the middle, so that is negative 7. So plus 2 and minus 7. Again, 2 times negative 7 is negative 14, and 2 plus negative 7 is negative 5. So if you were to distribute that back out, you would get the original problem. So that is the final answer. Okay. So again, you are splitting into 2 sets of parentheses, looking at that last term, finding its factors that are adding and subtracting to give you that middle term. There's that guess and check. Like, take the factors, check which set, adds up or subtracts to that middle term. Okay. All right, here are 4 more. Okay, I would like you I will go over these, but I would like you to pause the video and try all 4 of them by yourself on a sheet of paper and try to get those answers. And then when you're done, go ahead and start the video again and I will go over the answers. Okay, so hopefully you just did all 4 of them. I'm going to go ahead and start going over the answers here. So again, you want to split them into 2 sets of parentheses here. For this number 5, I need r times r to give me that r squared. And I'm going to look at the factors of 12 that give me 7. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Looks like it's that 3 and 4 that I need that give me 7. I have to add them, so they're both positive. So plus 3 and plus 4. So 3 times 4 gives me positive 12, and 3 plus 4 gives me positive 7. Okay, moving on to number 6 here. So set up my 2 sets of parentheses. I know I need n times n to give me that n squared. And I want to look at the factors of 8 that give me that 6. So 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. Looks like it is 2 and 4 that I want. But I need to get negative 6 there in the middle. So I need negative 2 and negative 4. When I add them, that makes negative 6. And when I multiply 2 negatives, I get that positive 8. So minus 2 and minus 4, and there's the final answer. Okay, number 7, again, I'm going to set up my parentheses. This time I need the factors of 60 that give me 4. So 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, and 5 and 12, and then 6 and 10. Okay. All right, so we have a lot to look through here, and we only want to get 4, so I know that 1 and 60 is too big, 2 and 30 is too big, 3 and 20 is too big, 4 and 15, if I subtract them, I only get 11, 5 and 12, if I subtract them, I get 7, 6 and 10, if I subtract them, I get 4. Again, since I'm subtracting, one of them has to be negative. Okay, so I want a negative 4, so that means I need negative 10. So I'm going to have x and x here in the beginning, and then plus 6 and minus 10. So again, 6 plus negative 10 gives me that negative 4 in the middle, and 6 times negative 10 gives me that negative 60 at the end. Okay. All right, moving on to number 8 here, set up my 2 parentheses. I need x times x in the front to give me that x squared, and I want the factors of 20 that give me, there's no number there, so remember that's a 1. So I need the factors that add or subtract to give me 1. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't go in there, 4 and 5 go in there. Okay, so when I look at that, the only one that's going to give me a difference of 1 is 4 and 5. But because I'm subtracting them, something is negative. And that I want the 4 to be negative because what I want is that positive 1 left over. So minus 4 and positive 5. So negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, which I want at the end there. And negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1, which I want in the middle. Okay, so hopefully you're able to get those. Okay, I'm going to do extra practice here. You can go back and forth between pausing the video, or you can kind of just listen to my explanation here on these answers. But I'm just going to put several problems and put the answer before I go on to the next problem. And then I will explain what I want you to do for the practice, okay, for the required practice, okay? So take a look here at x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay, like I said, you can either pause it and then start the video again to get the answer, or you can just kind of let it go, or you can skip all this slide, I guess. But when you do that there and put that into 2 parentheses, you need to get x plus 1 and x plus 3. So 1 times 3 is our positive 3. 1 plus 3 is our 4. Okay, here's the next one. The answer there, x plus 2 times x plus 4. 2 plus 4 is 8. No, sorry, 2 plus 4 is 6, but 2 times 4 is the 8 that we need. Okay, here's the next one. And the answer for that one is x plus 3 times x plus 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Or you can write your answer as x plus 3 squared. Remember, we saw that in our last unit. It's just like the fancier way of writing out your answer. I don't care which one you give me. Okay. All right, the next one here, x squared minus x minus 6. And the answer for that is x minus 3 times x plus 2. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, and negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Next one, x squared plus 5x minus 6. The answer for that one is x minus 1 times x plus 6. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6, and negative 1 plus 6 is 5. X squared minus 5x plus 6. Now notice that's the same thing except for some signs that are different on the last one. So you're dealing with the same factors. Okay, the answer is x minus 2 times x minus 3. So negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. And then negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. And then the last one here, x squared plus 5 minus 20. And the answer to that one is x plus 5 times x minus 4. So 5 times negative 4 is negative 20, and 5 plus negative 4 is positive 1. Okay? All right, so that was that last form of factoring, a trinomial. So that's the guess and check method. So we've learned greatest common factor, grouping, difference of squares, and now guess and check. Okay? So we have all of the methods that we need. But remember, later this week you'll get another video on if A is not 1, if it's like 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, okay? So same method, guess and check, but just a little bit more work there. I would like you to please complete the Khan Academy assignment that is titled Factoring Quadratics Intro that was assigned to you. Remember that you can do that however many times you need to get that 100%. Make sure to use the hints if you're getting stuck, or go back through this video again if you feel like you didn't understand it once you do the Khan Academy assignment. Email me if you have questions. Contact me, either, it doesn't matter which email, the @staff.goshenschools or just the @goshenschools.org. But please make sure that you are asking for help if you need it. I can still help you from home, okay? That's what I'm here for. I would much rather have taught this to you in a class, but we can't do that. Please make sure that you are staying healthy and safe, and Make sure you're still communicating with your friends through social media. Stay in contact with people. You don't need to like not socialize with anybody over your phone through email or anything too. But there's also an optional practice that's going to be posted on Canvas. If you want extra practice on this, it's not something that I'm going to make you turn into me. It's just there if you want practice before we move on to the next lesson. But please reach out for help through another classmate or through myself if you need help. But we will continue on, and I'm trying to modify the assignments to make sure that you're not going to be stressed over everything. So the next one is continuing the same method, just a little bit different with the A value. But please make sure that you are emailing me and letting me know, like, hey, like I totally didn't get your video, or I don't get this, and I can try to figure something else out. Okay. Hopefully you are able to keep up with your work and communicate with your teachers. So look for other assignments on Canvas from me as this time goes on. Thanks.